right, the NFL is a game that gives and gives and gives. On the field, it's like gladiatorial combat light, or it's as good as an action movie. But then in the off season, you get days like today where the drama's as good as soaps, and it puts you on the tips of your toes, waiting for the next thing to happen. Today was a ton of news that are affecting teams, divisions, conferences, the free agency that's coming, team builds. It was a tremendous day. And just as I was going to get ready to record this thing, another big story came out. KC makes a huge move, trading Thuney. DJ Metcalf is demanding a trade or requesting a trade, however you want to slice it. Eagles make another, Roseman's so good, re-sign Zach Baun. Raiders make a surprising move on the offensive line that really gives you a little bit of a nervous feeling if your team, like my Dolphins, need offensive linemen as free agency. The market seems to be going up, guys. Cincy has a surprise retirement, an interesting release from the Jaguars, and Maxx Crosby signs a max deal. So that's what I'm going to cover today, guys. First off, we got to start with the former champs. Really, I thought, and just probably like you, KC was going to do everything they could to fortify that front, especially after you saw Mahomes get obliterated. He was like one of those voodoo dolls, just pop, 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 and he got wrecked. And you could see the difference in the offensive lines and how the defense of the Eagles played against a porous KC offensive line that reminded you of the Tampa beatdown. And you'd figure, okay, they re-signed Trey Smith, or tagged him, but you figure they wouldn't move off Thuney, and Thuney moved to Chicago for a 4th round pick. I know my Dolphins should have paid a 4th round pick for Thuney, and there's a lot of teams out there that should have done the same thing. But Tavon Jenkins, who I thought might have a chance to get back with Chicago, likely won't now. You got Thuney in there to uplift this Chicago offense that really needs to solidify itself with a young quarterback. And it makes you wonder, is Chicago going for Gianti? A lot of people, I think this guy is a superstar. And is Chicago going back to those that midway physical style of football? And you bring Gianti in here with the offensive line they got now, extraordinarily interesting. But what is KC going to do? They've hit on some amazing picks in the draft. They missed on Taylor on the outside, paying him way too much money. Their draft pick last year for the left tackle, he had a bad season. Can he rebound? They're going to have to invest in this offensive line. I guess with Trey Smith, they couldn't afford Thuney. But this is very interesting. It could start spelling the decline of KC unless they get back to their old ways of finding great picks in the mid-rounds for their offensive line. Very interesting stuff. DJ Metcalf. There's teams out there like the Bills and New England and Denver and Green Bay, Chicago, maybe even Chicago, Washington. These teams could use a stud receiver. And Metcalf, he's 27 years old, 6'4", 235, and he is now going to be on the market. It's going to be expensive in draft capital. It's going to be expensive for your cap. But this guy could flip the script. What if he does go to KC? I don't know. KC can't really afford anything. But the Bills, I know, they're very broke, but they can move money around with Allen. It could be a huge day for them. New England looking to rebuild. What if he goes there and helps out Drake May? Denver on the verge. And Denver has a pick that they can give up a 1st-round draft pick this year. That's very, very reasonable at 20th overall to maybe get Metcalf. Green Bay could use them. They've got $40 million. Chicago's got plenty of them. LA Chargers. What about if you pair Hubbard with Metcalf? They have the offensive line. Some might say that Herbert's the quarterback. I think he is. But they are desperate for a receiver. Metcalf to the Chargers. And then there's Washington on the verge of doing great things. He's got plenty of money. I'm not so sure that would be the move for them. But LA, because they went to the postseason. They too have a manageable pick to give off. They're not going to find a talent like DJ Metcalf with that pick. So that is going to be extraordinarily interesting. But when you get back to the Thuney thing, we all see the offensive line's critical. Some people might debate it's a little bit more important, a little bit less important. But this free agency has some guys, not great ones. There's a lot of nicks on these guys. But Alex Kappa from the Bengals, who gave up 8 sacks and 51 pressures, just signed a 2-year, $11 million deal. And that's a low-end guard who gets pushed back, really doesn't have the sand in the pants. And if he's going to make 2-year, $11 million, what are some of these other guys like Tavon Jenkins or Aaron Banks or James Daniels? What are they looking at? It could be pushing the market much higher than a lot of fan bases and a lot of GMs hope for. Again, my Dolphins, we are tight in that cap. And this could be pointing towards a stark rise again for the lower end offensive linemen, which wouldn't be good for certain teams that have not done the right thing to their offensive line. Then the Eagles. Harry Roseman's the best. Let Slay go at 34. Some people, but he just signed Zach Baun, Super Bowl almost MVP, stud guy who turned his defense around to pair him with Fangio for a 3-year, $51 million contract, which is extraordinarily reasonable. Harry Roseman knows how to do this. He's not perfect, but man, that Eagles team is locked up with another draft, another free agents from the brilliant, I would say almost, I won't say genius, but extraordinarily brilliant Roseman. Very good move. Sam Hubbard, retired. 104 games, 88 starts, 38.5 sacks, only 29 years old. And Trey Hendrickson, the oldest stud. These two guys have been like Batman and Robin. Hendrickson is probably going to get moved off. Bengals have a terrible defense, and now they are down another player. This is going to put a lot of pressure on the Bengals to draft defense. Clearly, that's where they're going to have to go, and in spades. And then Christian Kirk. 7 games this year due to injury, 12 games last year, but he was the toast of the town 3 years ago, released at 27 years old. Teams that have been managing their cap need a little help at receiver, maybe like a Chargers, if they can believe he can stay healthy. That's another big player out in this free agency market. And guys, you can pull these guys out. That's why certain teams that give the house for certain receivers that, you know what, maybe they're a little past their prime, maybe they got a year or 2 left, and they overcommit, they kind of regret it. Now, last is Maxx Crosby, 3 years, $106 million, 91.5 guaranteed, highest paid non-quarterback. You've got an edge rusher out there, you've better sign him early. And you might want to start drafting extra guys because the value of these guys are going up. The interior offensive linemen, interior defensive linemen are rising. Everything's rising starkly. But Crosby is one of the best. But you know that it's a rising tide raises all boats. This free agency period is going to be extraordinarily interesting. Markets are being set. Bottoms are being set with Kappa. If you haven't been cap conscious and you're not putting yourself together through the draft, it looks like it could be tough sledding, unfortunately, for some teams. Very good day, very interesting day. I might click this thing off and find another big news note. Get ready. This free agency, this draft should be extraordinary. Curtis saying, be well. Curtis out. Start building your own online sportsbook today by getting signed up with AceBread.com service that allow you to book action on sports from all around the world.